Mukundi Lambani. You're going to
Yes.
talk to us about something really very, very exciting. We do know that Ambani Africa stands as a dynamic South African tech, educational tech startup, offering a range of solutions that benefit both private and public sectors. So really, this is awesome. And perhaps I guess I should start off by welcoming you to the show, ask you to tell us more about this startup. What inspired you to establish? Sorry, I have a frog in my throat.
It's that
um,
season.
absolutely, and I'm going to be talking about all of these nasties that make us sick. So what's you are obviously in the tech space. You are the CEO of Ambani Africa. Where and how, in the start of your journey post varsity or post your working experience, you decided that this is the space you want to be in, and what do you bring to the space?
Mhm. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting for us, as you said, as a startup, to get opportunities to speak about our work like this. So, as you rightfully said, we're an educational technology company. That means we play in this space of teaching and learning, but finding ways to do that that are innovative, that are interesting, and that make education more accessible. So we are Ambani, Ambani Africa, and Ambani means speak in the language of Chivenda, and that really speaks to what it is we do. So we particularly focus on creating resources in different languages, particularly our African languages that tend to be digitally underrepresented. So you can't always find resources for learning in your own language and for learning the language as well. And so we really use language, we use technology, we try and make learning engaging and interesting and fun as well. So we use content, things like animation and gaming to do this, to really ultimately make education and learning across the board more accessible. So I think you mentioned that we do work in primary schools, we work in ECDs, but we work all the way in universities and corporates as well. And so there's different work, and the work looks different in each space, but ultimately the why remains the same across the board.
When I
Um,
came across, pardon, did you want to say
no, no,
add
no,
something
please.
else? Okay, when I came across your piece, I kind of said to myself, yay, not a minute or a moment sooner. This is so needed, so sorely needed in our country, knowing that we've been told by experts, including the Department of Education, that our children only or probably can't even grasp comprehension. I think in grade 4, they
Yeah.
reach grade 4 unable to understand, to comprehend what they're reading.
Mm,
And that probably is indicative of the fact that perhaps our home languages are not English, and that impacts on the children. But
mm,
in your introduction, you also mentioned high schools, universities, and corporates. So
mm,
let's park this issue aside for a minute. What
mm.
type of work would you be doing in those spaces?
Mm, mm. For sure. So in those spaces, it is still centered on language. So one example is a project we're doing with the University of the Northwest, NWU, and there we focus on medical students. So even they struggle. So oftentimes they find themselves placed in different communities for their practicals, having to help patients in the best possible way, but you find that there are communication barriers. So you find that the practitioner speaks one language and the patients speak a host of languages, and then it becomes difficult to really do that work. And so together we developed an application that initially focused on HIV/AIDS, but is expanding into other areas, and really to function as a translation portal. So the practitioner themselves or the medical practitioner can speak in their primary language, and then the system translates it for the patient, and the patient is then able to um, uh, uh, hear and understand in their own language. And so really in that space, it's more about helping corporates or helping someone in the workplace be able to do their work and sort of overcome these language barriers.
I'm smiling because I have two nephews living in Turkey,
Oh.
and the second nephew, the older one, is married. The second one is going to marry a Turkish girl. And in
Mm,
certain parts of Turkey, they're still very, very traditional.
mm,
And unbelievably, English is not widely spoken in Turkey. So when he went to meet the future in laws, he knew there was going to be a language barrier. And he went along with his phone and this translation
mm,
facility, and that's the
mhm,
way the in-laws or the potential in-laws and he were able to converse and to have a conversation going via
mm,
these translation apps. And
mm,
that is being widely, such apps are being widely used elsewhere in the world. How
mm,
did you happen on it?
mm. Well, sure, where to start? So I mean, my own journey started with my desire to connect with my language of Chivenda, because I didn't grow up in Limpopo, and so the interactions I had with the language were sort of limited to just my parents. But I think in doing the research and in speaking to other people, and I think in speaking to a lot of parents as well who were people my age who were starting their own families and becoming parents, they suddenly felt like languages was such an important part of their identity and something they wanted to instill in their children. But it felt like there were no modern ways to do that for our local languages. And then I think just exploring the language landscape and all of the different things that were happening, starting to speak to teachers and starting to, as you rightfully said, understand what's happening with languages, in primary schools, starting to speak to other parents, starting to speak to people in other spaces, you realize how important language is and how oftentimes African languages were left behind. I mean, the story of Turkey is so fantastic because there's been a lot of these resources actually for other languages for a long time. And I think only now are we starting to get, more AI and other resources in our own local languages.
So, what are some of the very significant challenges you've encountered in preserving and promoting African languages through technology, and how has Ambani Africa
Mm.
addressed them?
Mm. So there's always challenges. I think the digitization is a big challenge. Is that it's not always easy to find resources, to find recordings, to find written work in all of these different languages. You can't just kind of Google at the time. At least you couldn't just Google and find things. So you really have to explore. We've really had to partner with university institutions where a lot of research and a lot of the work around languages is actually happening, where a lot of development in the languages are happening, where standardization is happening. And so we've had to say we can't do it all, but how do we partner with institutions and people who are already doing the work? And how do we then apply some of that work in new and interesting contexts? So that's one thing we've had to do. I think a wonderful problem is that people will often say, do you have my language? Do you have my dialect? And we can't cover it all yet. We're trying to grow as we can. But I think it's a good problem to have, that oftentimes people are like, please add this language or please add this dialect. I think also just dialects as well has been a challenge. So you'll find that, people in one area speak a certain way, people in another area speak another way, and then people are sort of, that's not how you should say it, this is how it's said. So kind of battling all of that. But what has helped again is working with organizations like the Pan South African Language Board, who are focused on standardization of languages. So having some sort of legitimate backing through institutions really helps us in doing the work.
Undoubtedly, there is a need for huge amount of resources, financial and otherwise. And I'm kind of wondering if that is forthcoming, because if you don't get that, you're not going to be able to make strides. Would
Mm.
that mean you're an NPO or an NGO, and how does this all work?
Mm. So I think that's always the challenge of an educational technology company, balancing um, the work that needs to be done and the spaces where it needs to be done and the impact of it versus your own sustainability. And I think it's a question we've been, we'll probably always be battling with. But we are a for-profit organization. A lot of the work that we do with institutions. So when we build out technology, we then white label that technology and allow it to be applied elsewhere. So we've got a children's app called Ambani Kids. And that technology, the underlying technology, is something we actually use across the board with some of our corporate partners, with some of our university partners. So that certainly helps with the sustainability piece. And I think we've had some really good support from some great corporates as well for some of the work that we do. So we do work in digitizing rural classrooms and making all of these resources in their languages available to them. And a lot of times that's sponsored by a corporate or some other institutions. And so we've been lucky in having a lot of these corporate partners that really understand the vision and worry about the impact as well.
Undoubtedly, this type of work is very time consuming. And do you kind of work on a per project basis? How does this all work? Or do you have a blueprint which you can just kind of adapt to the different languages that you are going to actually work with? We're also going to look at the type of material you put out, how easy is it to reference the material, to use it, very especially in the case of small children. But all of that you will respond to right after our first ad break, if you don't mind.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference. When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Albeit Lodge, your true home away from home. Albeit is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Albeit has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albeitlodge.co.za.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
Hey, Gulam.
Yeah?
Did I return your lawnmower last month?
No, bye, you didn't.
Oh, no. Now what'll I do? I wanted to borrow it again, man.
With Randry Jewelers, you won't have to borrow or lend because the prices are so well trimmed on all gold and diamond jewelry. Alternatively, we could remake your old jewelry into a brilliant new design. Visit Randry Jewelers at 151 Stevens Lamini Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randry Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Abu Hurairah narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say,
In black seed, there is a healing for every disease except death. Experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
Make a conscious choice. Sip for change and support Palestine Drinks Africa. With every can, you help end the genocide and stand in solidarity with Palestine. Choose between our original or sugar-free options available in the case of 24. Every sip is a step towards justice. Every purchase a powerful message of unity and support for the Palestinian cause. Contact 082 888-1440 or 082-7739-556 today and be part of the change. Palestine Drinks Africa. Sip for change. Liberty for everyone.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. It's 11:20 and we are talking with Mukundi Lambani, CEO of Ambani Africa, and it's about reimagining learning. Really, it's about apps that assist kids, and I guess right across the board, high school, universities, and even corporates, to actually bridge the language gap. And I think that's just simply put, that's putting it as simplistically as I possibly can. It's really bridging the language gap. Would I be correct in making that statement, Mukundi?
Absolutely. Yeah, great way to put it.
Okay, brilliant. Would you like to respond to the questions I gave you before the ad break?
Yes. So I think the question was around, what it takes to I guess transition, the work that it takes to do this across the different languages. So I always say that the first is the hardest, and then everything after that gets a little bit easier. Our flagship product is Ambani Kids, is our children's app. And obviously with children, we want to make this as engaging as possible. So we're doing things like songs, we're doing animations, we're doing stories. So that does take a lot to do, and it's a lot of content. But again, even with something like animation, doing the first one is the hardest. And then after that, we're translating into the different languages. Sometimes there's instances where we have to version. So we have to say, is this relevant for this language? Then we might need to make some adjustments. But I think, getting the first one done is usually the one that takes a longer process. But again, with content, you require a lot of content to sort of, fill up the application. And so we work a lot with content partners as well. And so we've got other creators who are doing work in languages, who are doing work for kids, and we're able to bring them on board. So we serve as not only content creators, but also as a platform working with other content creators as well.
It sounds like a huge amount of work. I mean, on the surface, people would take this very lightly, not realizing, and I think I did put the question to you earlier on resources, not only financial, but a whole host of human resources as well, and other resources. Having said that, I was going to ask you what's your background, but I've just checked my notes and I see that you come from a production background, a filmmaker. Wow. Talk to us about, why you've transitioned, or rather, why did you initially get involved in film production? And because of that background of yours, I should imagine the work that you've now taken on is that much easier. It must be such an easy process.
I mean, yeah, easier, definitely. But yes, so I think I always say this work is a culmination of all of my different, all of the different things I've done. So yes, I started out as a filmmaker, and I used to consider myself a conscious filmmaker. And I think I went into media understanding the impact that it has, understanding the power that it has to change people, to shape society. And so I wanted to do that in a way that was conscious, in a way that was good. And so I did. I studied filmmaking and started out as a film editor, and I did a little bit of design as well. And I was working in the advertising space as well. So that was something I did for a bit. And then I had actually also taught English as a foreign language in Asia for a year. And I think that's where kind of the teaching and the classroom spirit came in. And then eventually I had sort of I'd worked as a lecturer as well when in the film, in the media, and the business space. I ended up studying entrepreneurship as well, and management, to just upskill myself. And then eventually I did a master's that focused on creative technology. And so things like augmented and virtual reality and AI and gaming was a big part of some of the research that I was doing. And so, yes, so this work is kind of a combination of my own personal struggles with language, but my experience and love in film and media, my experience in business, and my studies in kind of technology, and how all of that comes together into the business.
And undoubtedly, if you didn't have all of that background and experience in those different fields, it wouldn't have been probably as easy for you to transition into this area of the work that you're currently doing. And that, of course, is Ambani Africa. People who might be watching and listening to us this morning would probably think it's so easy, very especially when I made reference to the Turkish app. And as you've also so rightly indicated, there are such apps available all around the world. But let's not dismiss the fact that hours upon hours upon hours of work has gone into those apps, in the development of those apps. And also, as you indicated, it was a lot of different talents that were brought together to get to the end result. It wasn't just Mukundi. It wasn't just a content producer. It wasn't just an interpreter. It involved a huge team of people. But let's now understand why it's crucial for educational content to reflect African cultures and languages. And how does your company ensure cultural relevance in its material? And I ask this question in light of the fact that in this day and age, we are told that English is the language of preference the world over. How would this tie in with perhaps our identities and the relevance of us as a nation?
I mean, it ties in completely, and it's a heavy but an important additional role that this plays. So I think, one, for education, and you spoke about it so well in the beginning of our discussion, that you find that there are breakages in our system where I think it's up to 80% now of grade 4 learners can't read for meaning by the time they're in grade 4. Grade 5 learners can't do basic calculations, and they're already in grade 5. And so we understand that our children are falling behind. We also understand, the department and UNESCO and everybody says you learn best in the language you understand and you speak. So I always say, imagine yourself learning a completely new, different language, and then having to learn like maths in Russian. For a lot of our learners, that's the experience. That, one, I speak one language at home, I get to class, I'm doing 2 exercises. Firstly, I'm learning a brand new language and just trying to master it. And then secondly, I'm learning all of these new concepts in this new language that I'm still mastering. And so ours is not to say that English is not necessary. Of course it is, for you to function in this global world. But it's to say that you can learn things in your own language and eventually translate those things into English. And a lot of countries do that. Children in Germany learn in German and then eventually translate that German into English. And so, so our work is one, on that educational level, to say, do you actually just understand and can you understand the work that you're learning, and can you first of all prioritize the learning, and then eventually learn the language well enough to be able to translate or to be able to learn in it. Then I think there's just the context and the cultural piece. I think we've heard so much about how representation matters, but even just for you as a learner to feel like learning is connected to who you are, and learning is available in your own language. So I always say, what we teach is likely to change because so many things are changing and AI is happening and And the most important thing we can give a child is a good relationship to learning. And so if I walk into a class and I feel like I enjoy learning, it's available in my language, it's accessible to me, I see it in my context, I see myself and my community represented, I can always learn a new thing. But I've established that learning is for me and it's available to me. And so if something changes, I'll figure it out and I'll be able to learn it, but I've got a good relationship to learning. And so that's what culturally relevant content also does. It makes someone feel seen and represented and involved, and encourages participation because they feel like it's speaking directly to them. And then I think on the third level, it is that cultural preservation aspect. And oftentimes, even for myself and other younger people, it always feels like culture, especially African cultures, belong to an older generation. They don't belong to us. And so there's almost a disconnect or a interest because it's not represented in a way that makes it feel like it's a part of me and it belongs to me. And so it was important for us to say, we're going to use technology, we're going to make culture cool and a part of the now and not something that feels like it belongs in the past, so that we're more motivated to make it a part of who we are. And so I think those are the different levels in which culturally relevant content functions and encourages.
Okay, our next guest is standing by. So very quickly, I'm going to put one or two questions to you, if we can just be quick about it. Undoubtedly, I mean, I made reference to grade 4 learners not being able to comprehend what they're reading. But our current context here in South Africa regarding the pass rate, this type of an app would address that situation, would it not? Where the Department of Education doesn't have to drop the pass rate to 40% or some such ridiculous figure, and the rest of us in the country then sit back and wonder, if that person's going to qualify as a doctor or a teacher, what value are they going to bring to us as a country? So that's the one issue. And finally, have you had feedback from teachers, parents, the education department? Has that been positive?
Okay, yes. So to answer that, we have just signed an MOU with the Department of Basic Education to be able to implement, particularly in primary school, some of our content and our actual application in the classroom. So that's been really positive, and that is a collaboration where we'll get lots of feedback from teachers and learners. So it's something we've just started and we've just signed, and so we're very excited to see how that's implemented, how that goes, and very happy to have the department as a partner who has seen the value in the work that we're doing.
And let's wrap up by saying huge congratulations to Ambani Africa. You've received several accolades, including the MTN App of the Year award. And I'm just wondering how these recognitions influences the company's growth and your personal journey as an entrepreneur.
I think they really just help us get out there more than anything else. I think our most important measure is learning and impact on our users. And so I think all of these things are fantastic. And if they help more people hear about us and what work we're doing and access what we're doing, then we're really just grateful for all of that.
Thank you indeed. And once again, many congratulations. Lovely talking with you. God bless.
Thank you.
It is exactly 11:33. We're going to take a few ads and then we'll be joined by Professor Richard van Zyl-Smit. We're going to talk about unveiling the vape epidemic.